Son of a glitch. Pokémon Heartgold and Soulsilver. You know, whenever I think about Pokémon Gold and Silver, I get super nostalgic. And it turns out these Generation 4 remakes of these Game Boy classics have some pretty interesting glitches that we can check out. So what do you say we jump into the very first glitch? One of the coolest things about this game is that the Pokémon that's first in your party actually follows you around as you explore Johto and Kanto. Now, aside from this being a really nice touch, there's actually a really easy glitch we can do with this. What we need to do is find one of these ledges that you can jump over, and your Pokemon will usually follow you as you jump over as well, but what we're going to do is we're going to jump over and then time opening the menu as our Pokemon is just on top of the ledge. Now, a word of advice, I would suggest running over the ledge as opposed to just walking over the ledge, as for some reason the Pokemon that follows you usually just falls off the ledge when you try to open the menu. But if you've done this right and your Pokemon is sat on the ledge just like this, all you then need to do is keep opening the menu, going into the Pokemon, and then coming out of the menus entirely, and each time you do this, the Pokemon's sprite behind you will keep having its position reset to the point where it's actually moving up each and every time you do this, to the point where if you do it enough times, the Pokemon sprite will actually leave the screen entirely. I can only guess that this Totodile is going back to its home planet, but who knows. This is a very strange glitch, and basically if you want to fix it, all you have to do is exit all the menus and just walk forward, and then bam, the Pokemon's back on the ground again where it belongs. But this isn't the only glitch in the game where Pokemon randomly float. If you have a poisoned Pokemon and it survives the poisoning as it jumps over one of these ledges, for some reason it'll begin floating off the ground while it follows you. It's almost as if the message that pops up to tell you the Pokemon has survived the poisoning overrides the game checking whether the Pokemon has actually made it over the ledge and if the Pokemon is on the ground or not. Hey, check out my floating Pokemon, it's super rare. And this glitch will go straight back to normal if you jump over one of these ledges again or if you enter a building. So I took my Pokemon to Professor Elm and he told me to Tohjo dial it down with the floating a bit. I'll leave now. Here's a bizarre glitch that happens in Kanto if you fly to Cinnabar Island. For this glitch you'll need the Game Boy Sounds item that you can only get once you have all 16 badges in the game, and then what you need to do is surf to Route 20. Then what you need to do is switch on the Game Boy Sounds in the menu, and this reverts the soundtrack back to the old chiptune tracks from the Game Boy Classics. Then the final step of this glitch is to simply switch off the Game Boy Sounds while still surfing around Cinnabar Island or still in Route 20, and what will happen is the soundtrack will just completely switch off. The sound effects of the game can still be heard. For instance, if you bump into the wall, you'll hear that thud sound, and if you simply swim back onto Cinnabar Island, you'll hear the music come back in again, but this is a really strange glitch. Also, if you enter a battle while this glitch is still active, the music will still come back. It's a really bizarre glitch, and it only happens in this one area of the game as far as I know, but it also only works in the European and the Japanese version of the game, so anybody playing the US version probably will never encounter this. Here's another Japanese exclusive glitch which happens in Slowpoke Well. For this glitch you'll need HM3 Surf and HM4 Strength. Then you just need to reach this area of Slowpoke Well where if you swim to the left and then upwards there's an area that you can walk around, and there's also a boulder that you can see just to the right. If we use Strength to push the boulder, we can actually push it over the water so it just floats in the air. Not only that, but if we continue to surf, we can actually keep pushing the boulder while it's floating in the air over the water. It's kinda crazy. Hey man, how's it going? I'm just you like my boulder? It floats. Sadly, there's really not much to do with this now. It's just floating over the water. You can only push it so far and it will most likely get stuck. But hey, it's a really weird glitch and it's definitely something you should try out if you ever, for some reason, play the Japanese version of a game that's got a lot of writing in it. Yeah, never mind. I guess we should move on. In our next glitch, we need to head to Cianwood Gym. For this glitch, the first Pokemon in our party should be something that's very large and won't get inside the Cianwood Gym. So in this example, I'm using Ho-Oh, and once I enter the gym, it goes back in its Pokeball. Once inside, we need to go up these steps and then stand directly underneath the waterfall in the middle of the gym. We'll then go into our Pokemon menu and switch out our large Pokemon for something a bit smaller that will follow us around. And when we do this and pop out of the menu, we'll see that the Pokemon we've just switched out is now standing underneath the waterfall in a really strange way. It's kind of not underneath us, it's just kind of below us somehow. This is a super minor glitch that fixes itself the minute you walk from underneath the waterfall, and yeah, not much to say about that one. Another really minor glitch in Heartgold and Soulsilver are these patches of grass which are there but not there, if that kind of makes sense. They can be found in 2 spots in the game, and this particular one right now is Route 44, and it's just this top right corner of the grassy area. You can see that there's kind of rustling effect, but there's no actual grass in that area. It almost looks like we're walking on the very edge of this area. It's kind of strange, but that's not the only strange thing. We can also encounter wild Pokemon in this kind of weird there but not there grass. The other area of the game we can see this to perhaps better effect is actually in the Safari Zone. While walking on the very top part of this grassy area, you can see that once we cross over to the part just below the pond, you can see that there's now suddenly grass on that line. And again, it's a very, very minor glitch and something almost not worth talking about, but I thought I would talk about it, and so I did. Here's another simple glitch that takes place in the Indigo Plateau entrance to the Elite Four, and with this guard in particular. Now, usually when you talk to him, he'll let you pass through to go and challenge the Elite Four. However, if we talk to this lady just over to the side on the right, she'll welcome us to the Pokemon Communication Club Coliseum, which is a bit of a mouthful, and here we'll set up a battle for 2 in the flat battle mode, and then select the GS Cup. And when she asks us about battling in the GS Cup, we need to choose Check Special Pokemon. She'll list off a bunch of Pokemon, and then when she's done with that, we just need to exit out of all these menus and then go and speak to the Indigo Plateau guard. However, once he's done asking us if we're ready for the Elite Four, instead of moving to the side so we can proceed, he just stands there. And there's no way to get by him except for exiting this entire room and then just coming back in, and everything will be back to normal. But it's a really strange glitch that somehow talking to this lady affects this guy. I don't know, maybe he just really likes her and he's not impressed that we spoke to her first, and he's just like, she only has eyes for me, man, and you're like, nah, we were just talking about Pokemon, it's fine, can I go through, please? Wow, I was just playing a situation out in my head there. I think we should move on. There's a hidden area on Route 34 that you can surf to, which hides these 3 ace trainers. The trainers at the sides approach you the minute you enter this clearing, which initiates a double battle. And once they're dealt with, the game fully intends you to walk directly forward so the 3rd trainer approaches you. However, if you leave this area and go back to, say, the Pokemon Center, when you return, the area will be completely reloaded, meaning all the trainers are back in their original positions, but this also means we can move to the side of the 3rd trainer, Kate, who we haven't fought yet, and we can also speak to her. Now, because the game earlier didn't give us any option but to walk forwards, it never expects us to leave the area and then return. So when we actually speak to Kate, she'll say the things that she's supposed to say once we've beaten her. However, this battle is only initiated once you're standing directly in front of Kate, so once you do that, you can begin the battle. This is a really small oversight that nobody would expect to see, as you'd naturally just walk forward and initiate the battle anyway, but hey, it's something that you can do in the game. If you haven't already had your fill of floating Pokemon in this game, well, there's more to come. For this next glitch, you're going to need TM42 Facade, which you can awkwardly win from Celadon City stores on a Friday. I mean, why won't you just give me the TM? You have 2 other things that I don't need. Just give me the TM. Oh, finally, thank you. Now that we have Facade 3 years later, we next want to teach this move to a Pokemon, and I chose Sneasel, and there's a strong reasoning behind this. For this glitch to work, I need a situation where the 2 Pokemon in a battle cannot really do any serious damage to each other. For instance, I took my Sneasel with the move Facade to Seafoam Islands to track down a Slowbro, preferably around levels 40 to 45, because Slowbros typically at that level know the moves Zen Headbutt, which doesn't hurt my Sneasel, Slack Off to heal itself, it knows Water Pulse, which will do some damage, but I've got plenty of Hyper Potions, and it also knows Withdraw, so it can boost its defense, which also means my attacks do very little damage to it. So with these stipulations in place, I should be able to pull this glitch off, but what exactly is this glitch? Well, each and every time I use the move Facade, the back sprite of my Pokemon will raise ever so slightly, about 1 or 2 pixels. And this is why we need all the things that surround this glitch, so I can keep attacking this Slowbro and have it heal itself and also not really do much damage to it. Now, if I speed this fight up, we can actually see more clearly how the sprite actually begins rising. If this Slowbro didn't keep nuking me with Water Pulse, this would have been much quicker. However, this was about 18 minutes worth of the battle. I'm pretty sure that I would have been able to get Sneasel's sprite all the way off the screen. However, Slowbro just didn't want to use Slack Off to heal itself, which means inevitably I ended up fainting it. But as you can see, this is clearly a glitch nonetheless. A pretty exhausting one, but definitely funny. And this brings us to our final glitch of the episode, which is probably one of my favorite favorites, but definitely one of the most broken in the game. It's a glitch known as tweaking, and basically it's a Generation 4 glitch where the game loads the tiles of nearby areas unsuccessfully. All the maps in Generation 4 are broken up into square sections or chunks which are 32 by 32 tiles across, and at any given time while you're playing the game, only 4 of these sections are loaded and visible, that being the section the player is currently in, as well as 2 sections orthogonally away and 1 diagonally away, depending on which quadrant of the current section the player is in. Halfway across each section at the boundaries between quadrants exist load lines, and tweaking is basically crossing these load lines at such a speed in such a way that you actually unload sections of the map. However, sometimes this can result in the game actually crashing. And this is almost exclusively done with the bike that you receive in Goldenrod City. The idea of it is kind of confusing, so I think the best way to show this off is actually by doing it. So naturally, here are a few of my favorite examples. An easy example to show off would be in National Park. The load lines are just here, and if we cross them in a left, right, left kind of pattern really quickly and then head to the left side of the screen, we can actually see that we've unloaded that area. This is really interesting because if we head diagonally down to the left, we'll eventually reach this grassy area, which if we cycle all the way to the bottom and then cycle upwards, we'll find a bunch of NPCs that I believe would usually be in the bug contest. You can speak to each one of them as you'd expect, but once you try to leave here, you'll actually be stuck, so the best way out is to fly out. Another great use of tweaking is actually skipping parts of the game. A great example being skipping Tohjo Falls and therefore HM7 Waterfall. In New Barktown, the load lines exist here, and if we cross them in this pattern, which I'll slow down so you can see, we'll actually incorrectly load a section off to the right side of the screen, which we can actually surf to and then stand on. And from here, another set of load lines exist on these tiles. So if we cross these tiles at speed again like we did before in New Barktown, we can actually get the right area to unload completely, meaning we can just cross over to an area where this NPC stands outside Tohjo Falls. Now obviously everything is still in the dark, so the way we get things to load back correctly is enter a menu or the Pokédex, and once you leave those menus, everything will be returned back to normal, which means you'll have skipped Tohjo Falls and HM7. The final example I'll show off happens in Olivine City, and the load lines are just here outside of the Pokemon Gym. If we quickly cross these load lines by going down, up, down, we'll unload the southern area just by the Pokemon Center. We can then ride our bike into the dark void, and somewhere in this mess is another set of load lines. You'll see the bike jump over 3 dark ledges, and the load lines are just to the left, though they're very hard to find as everything's dark. Honestly, this took me a couple of tries as you really cannot tell where the load lines exist. But if you have any kind of inkling where they are, you cross the load lines by going up, down, right, left, and maybe down again. I'm not entirely sure with this one. However, if you do this just right, you'll incorrectly load the southern area again. Now everything looks kind of normal, except I'm seemingly just a head that goes through the ground, and also Olivine City appears to be flooded. If we cross the load lines exactly how we did earlier just outside the Pokemon Gym again, what will happen is we'll incorrectly load the area to the south, which has now become a black void again, but this time we can reach the water over to the right. Now we can just surf across the ocean to reach Goldenrod City, which is unloaded to say the least. We can see all the 3D models of Goldenrod, but all the textures are missing. Seriously, this is some of the coolest stuff I love seeing when I do out of bounds glitches, and this is something I really wanted to show off. We can actually step onto the land just outside Goldenrod, but entering it is a different story. There are a ton of invisible walls and boundaries that prevent us from actually entering the city. And if you feel like you're done with this and you want to move on, you can easily just fly to Goldenrod and everything will be back to normal. A couple of notes on fixing this glitch: if you enter a battle or enter the menus, or if you simply cross load lines as the game intends, that will put everything back to normal. Also, there's a very slight chance doing this glitch may corrupt your save file, so there's your warning. Quite literally, I could make an entire episode on just this glitch and the crazy out of bounds things you can see, so if that's something you'd want to see, please let me know down in the comments. But that about wraps this episode up with some crazy glitches you can do in Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver. And if you enjoyed this episode, why not check out some other Pokemon glitches in these videos here? YouTube constantly changed the subscription model to screw over content creators, so if you want to know when I release new episodes, follow me on Twitter. And as always, a huge thanks to everybody who supports the Patreon. You guys are the ones that make it happen.